Okay, so in the last video, I already mentioned that it would be kind of nice to have the ability to change the animation speed as the animation is playing in this very moment. So let's introduce a new variable up here, which we'll call speed, and let's just set this to a value of 10. So where do we impact the animation speed? Well, we impact the animation down here where we are setting the waiting time between two iterations of the sorting process to be shown. And if greater speed means the animation is running faster, well, we want this waiting time to be smaller. So the greater the speed, the smaller the waiting time. So we'll introduce a fraction in here, and we'll put the speed in the denominator, okay? And this means that the greater the speed, the smaller the waiting time. And initially, we'll be dividing 1000 by 10. So this means we'll be waiting 0.1 seconds as a default value. And now down here, where we have the user interaction, we'll now introduce two statements, well, not two statements, but like two things. That is the option to increase the speed and the option to decrease the speed. So we're tracking for these user events, which could be anything: movement of the mouse, a click with the mouse, or pressing any button on the keyboard. And down here, we've only been checking whether the user clicks on the closing X of the plot window, okay? So now we'll have to introduce further code down here to keep track of the keyboard. So we'll type user presses keys on keyboard. And here we'll now use if event.type is equal to Pygame. Now we're not using quit again because it's not about quitting the window or the animation, but it's about pressing a key. And in Pygame, this is called key down. So if this is the case, well, we now have to distinguish between the left arrow key, which we'll be using to decrease the animation speed. So left arrow key to decrease the animation speed, and the right arrow key to increase the animation speed. Okay, so now that we're within this part of the code where we are checking, or we're within this if statement here, so we already know that the user pressed a key, any key, and now we have to check whether it had actually been the left arrow key or the right arrow key. So we type if event.key, that is the key that has just been pressed, is equal to Pygame.K_left. This is how the left arrow key is called in Pygame. Well, if that is the case, we'll be changing the speed of the animation. And now we can copy and paste this down here and change left to right. So with the speed variable, we have to be careful, because if we were just like typing -=1, what could happen is that at some point speed will be equal to 0, and the computer will then try to divide 1000 by 0. And that wouldn't work too well. So here we gotta make sure that we're not going below a certain threshold. And I think a good way to make sure nothing goes below 0 is to just keep it at 1 as a minimum. So we're using this max statement here, and it'll just see, well, what is greater, 1 or speed -1? And if speed -1 should be equal to 0, it will pick 1 instead. So here, this max operator will make sure that speed never becomes negative. And here we are now doing the same thing. We're making sure that speed doesn't become arbitrarily large. So here we'll just say 100, that might be a good maximum. If speed is equal to 100, then we're dividing 1000 by 100, which is 10. So if we are at full speed, we're just having 0.1 seconds in between each iteration. So let's see whether this works. So we now have the animation playing up here, and I'm just going to use the left arrow key a couple of times, and you can see that the animation is now slowing down. With BOGO sort, that might be a little hard to see. So let's change this. I'm just going to search for BOGO sort. So I'm going to make this from bubble, import bubble sort. And I'm going to copy paste this down here. Let's add a couple more bars. Let's make this 100 bars so that the iteration, the sorting process will take quite some time. So we can now see the bubble, and now I'm reducing the speed. So you can now see that it's going a lot slower. So this is now almost painful to watch because it's super slow. And if I was to decrease the speed any further, which I'm doing right now, I'm continuously pressing the keyboard here, you can see that it's not slowing down further. It's not actually 0, it's still moving. But now let's increase the animation speed. Let's tap the right arrow key a couple of times, and you can now see that the bubble is actually accelerating. And this is working quite nicely. So I don't know how many times I've just pressed it. I'm betting it's a lot of times. I don't know if I've reached the maximum yet, but I don't think it's accelerating any further, and I think there's not really any need for it to be any faster because it's already very fast. And yeah, so we have now just implemented different animation speeds. How cool is that? So let's wait for this animation to finish. At this speed, it's not going to take much longer. There we go. Okay, so what's next? Well, if we're having different animation speeds, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we had a button to like pause the entire animation? And I think, yeah, this would be kind of cool because later on when we have more advanced algorithms, it might be useful to be able to pause the animation to like freeze it for a moment, think about what the algorithm will do in the next step, and then, you know, we can unpause the animation and watch how it unfolds. Okay, so let's code the pause function. And the way that we are going to do this is we're going down here where it says animating, and we'll have another boolean here that says pausing, and that will be equal to false by default. So now down here within the animation, we'll say that everything is dependent on whether or not we're pausing. So if not pausing, well, only then we're going to look at the next step of the animation process. We'll create the bar chart, we'll update the plot, and we'll pause. So everything here, other than the user interaction, will be on pause if this Boolean is equal to true. Okay, so how do we turn on and off the pause function? Well, down here we specify the next key. So just use the spacebar, just like on YouTube, where you can use the spacebar to pause a video. So spacebar to pause the animation. And now we type if event.key is equal to pygame.space. I think it's space. Well, in that case, we will say pausing. And here we just use not pausing. Why is that? Well, if pausing is true, we're setting it to not pausing, so we're setting it to false. And if pausing is false, we're setting it to not pausing, which will then be true. So spacebar will work for both things, pausing and unpausing. So let's try this. The bubble is floating, and I'm going to hit the spacebar. And unfortunately, we ran into an error. And the error is that I did not use k underscore as with k left and k right. So this is just the Pygame lingo here, which we have to use. So let's see whether it works now. Spacebar, and there we go. The animation just paused. And let's see whether we can unpause it. Yep, that is working as well. We now have the ability to pause and unpause our animation. Cool. So next we might want to have the ability to reshuffle the array. Okay, so the sorting process is done, but we wanted to start over again, or like anywhere in between. So we'll introduce another function here to reshuffle the array and start all over. And I think I'm going to use the return key for that, because the return key, you could just easily hit it. It's pretty large, and then just like in your text editor, instead of specifying a new line, we're now specifying a new array to be sorted. So return key to reshuffle the array and start over. If event.key is equal to pygame.k underscore return. Well, if that is the case, we'll redefine our array. So we can actually just go up here. Where is that? Yep, this is what I'm going to need. Array is equal to random.sample range 1, n plus 1, and n. And then we'll just generate a new sorting process. This is what happens down here. And in case we had been pausing before, I think it would be kind of cool to like set this to false. I mean, in most instances, it will have been false, but in case we have been pausing, it's kind of cool to not having to press or have to press the space bar once more, right? If it's unpaused and we're reshuffling, we want this whole thing to start over regardless of the fact that it was just paused, okay? So I'm just gonna run this and you're gonna wait here. Well, just increase the speed. We're increasing the speed. The animation is running more quickly. We're seeing some progress here. The first 2 bars are in the correct position. Now it's 3, 4, and 5. And now, just because we want to, I'm just going to reshuffle everything and start all over. How cool is that? So now I'm going to try this pausing thing. The animation is now paused, and if I'm now pressing the return key, the animation is now playing. So I'm going to close this here. If we had not coded this, and just run it like that and pausing it, now the return key doesn't do anything. I'm pressing it, you might be able to hear it on the audio, but nothing is happening because I would still have to press the spacebar for the animation to continue to run. And this is why I kind of like this pausing is equal to false line down here. Okay, we'll now implement one final thing, and that's just using the escape key to terminate the window, the animation. This is just like the same thing as using the mouse and clicking the top right corner, but sometimes it's kind of annoying to like move your mouse and then hit just this little tiny X on your screen. And yeah, I think hitting the escape key is just you know, a convenience feature that's nice for the human user. So let's just use that. Escape key to terminate the animation. So if event.key is equal to pygame.k_escape. Well, in that case, we'll just set animating false. So the animation is running. I'm now pressing escape, and the animation terminates, which is exactly the same as using this little X up here. Wonderful. So let's say we weren't using bubble sort, but let's say we were using BOGO sort. And let's run this. From BOGO import BOGO sort. So now this is working. And let's see what happens if I not close the animation, but reshuffle it. Whoa, what just happened? It now switched to bubble sort. Why is that? Well, the problem is that I've just imported BOGO sort up here and I'm using it to generate the original process. But down here in the reshuffling part, we are switching back to bubble sort. So now I have to change this to BOGO sort as well. So every time when I'm using another algorithm, I have to change things in 2 places. That's kind of annoying, right? It would be kind of cool to only, if we only had to change one thing in one place. So I think a very good way to wrap everything up in this already very long section on Pygame is to put everything in a single function, which we'll just call animate. And in this function animate, we'll only specify 2 things. We'll specify the algorithm that we would like to animate or visualize, and then we'll only specify how many elements there are to be involved in this animation, okay? So this is what we'll be doing next. So we'll now go up here where we have different colors. And here we'll copy together all of the different algorithms, okay? So I'm just going to take this up here. And here we'll have all the different algorithms. So from bubble, import bubble sort. From BOGO, import BOGO sort. So this is hopefully not going to take too long. So from exchange, import exchange sort. So down here. From break, import brick sort from comb, import comb sort, and from cocktail, import cocktail sort. I think this is all that we've done so far. And now I'm going to use another dictionary called algorithms. And in this dictionary, we'll now assign to each algorithm its own name. So here we'll now have something like BOGO sort. This is now equal to BOGO sort. Now we'll do this for the other algorithms as well. And yes, I just copy pasted this into here to save us all some time. So now we can go down here. We don't have to bother with these functions, but down here where we are now working within the global environment, we can now introduce our animation function. So let's define a function called animate. And this function will now take the following things. The name of an algorithm. Now we can just type BOGO sort and it will then select the BOGO sort algorithm. And then we'll have to define how many observations we would like to have in the sorting process. We'll set that to maybe 50. We'll then have to define a certain speed, for example 10. And then we'll have to specify a width. I'm going to set that at 1500 and a height of 500. Depending on your screen, you might use your computer screen. You might not have to, but you can use different values here. And then lastly, we'll have this very odd looking thing called asterisk quarks, which stands for keyword arguments. I'm introducing this to allow for our function to take additional parameters later on when we'll be coding like more advanced sorting algorithms down the road, because some of these algorithms, they need more than just one parameter in terms of like this being only the number of elements involved here. So this will just be like something for the future, not for the moment. You can like choose not to put it in here right now, but later on you might need this. So it's better to put this into there. Just think of it as an option for future algorithms. And now we can just indent everything that we have in here. So all of this can now go into here. So now the first thing that needs to happen is we have to import the algorithm from the dictionary. So get algorithm from dictionary. And here we just type algorithm is equal to the dictionary, and then we'll just use the name that we just put into the function here. Okay, so algorithm is equal to algorithms in capital letters and then the name. So now we're creating the array, and now here we're just saying algorithm and no longer BOGO sort. And the cool thing is we can now just copy paste this down here where we are reshuffling it. Now we kind of made sure that we are not just suddenly switching to another sorting algorithm. And for this whole quarks thing to make any sense, we now have to add this here in the sorting algorithm as well. And similarly down here. Alrighty, so let's try this. Down here, we cannot just write animate, and let's use brick sort with n equal to 100 observations. I'm running this and I'm getting an error, of course. Okay, after some debugging, I finally found the mistake. There was an extra t involved up here. I think a lot of you might have seen this earlier when I coded this, so you have to remove this t up here, otherwise the code will not work. So let's go back down here. Let's run this again. And yep, now it's working. So let's go back to brick sort, set this to 100 and run the code. Yeah, so now there's a red bar and now it's a yellow bar because now we're on the other pass. We can increase the animation speed, we can pause the animation, we can reshuffle everything, and we can use the escape key to close the animation. Wonderful. And the cool thing about this animation function is, well, we can first of all remove these global variables up here. And now, well, we can just copy paste this over here into our main file. we can get rid of all of this and just type from animate, import animate. And in here, we'll just remove the call of the function. So let's go over to the main, and we can run bricksort just from the main without having to do any fancy things here. We don't have to import anything else other than the animation function. Okay, so yeah, this is working just fine. Let's try exchange sort, and voila, there we go. So now there's just one super minor thing left, and that is if you look up here, it now says Pygame window, which is just the default. We could change this to something a little nicer, like sorting algorithm visualizer or something like that. So we're now changing the caption up here of the window, and we can also like have a little name tag here that indicates what sorting algorithm is currently being animated down here. Okay, so we'll now change these two things as the very final thing that we'll be doing with Pygame for now. So yeah, let's close this, head back over to the animate function. We'll scroll down here after we have initialized the Pygame. Well, after we initialized Pygame and created the game screen, now we'll introduce the window caption. So we'll type pygame.display.set_caption, and we can call this sorting algorithm visualization. And then we can introduce text box with algorithm name. So this will be this little name tag at the top left of the animation window where it just says, well, what algorithm is it that we're currently sorting, right? Or not sorting, what algorithm it is that we're currently visualizing. Now to add a text box, we first have to define a font for Pygame to use when it's like writing text. And here we type pygame.font and then .font once more. And I used free sans bold .ttf in size 32. Now you can go to the Pygame documentation and have a look at other fonts that are available there, and you can select another font from there too. Next, we'll have to create the actual text. So here we type text is equal to font.render. Now we'll say name and true. The true statement here just refers to whether or not your computer will try to make the font appear super smooth or not. And we want this because we want our animation to look super slick and cool. So we'll just set this to true, but you can also set this to false. It doesn't really matter. And next, we now have to specify two colors. The first color will be the color of the text. So here we can just use the regular color, and then we'll just have to use a background color. And here we'll just use our predefined background color. So now that we have created the font, or like called the font, and created the text, it's now time to create the actual text box. So we'll type text box is equal to text.getRect. And now we have to specify where this is going to be, and I'm going to put this in the top left corner, and we'll indent it a little so that it's not like right at the origin, right in the top left corner, but it's like just moved slightly towards the bottom left, 10 pixels to the right and 10 pixels down. Now we'll go down here right before we update the screen. We'll now add text box. And we can just split this box to the using screen.blit text box. Okay, so let's go back to the main and let's see whether that works. It does not. We still have an error in here. And I think the problem is that I'm missing this text here and the text box because we're blitting the text inside the text box, okay? Let's back over to the main. We run this once more, and now it reads exchange sort up here, and it says sorting algorithm visualization over there. I'm going to close this. I'm going to say this is now equal to cocktail sort. I'm going to run this again, and now it says cocktail sort. And I think this is it. We have now, after a long 3 videos, created this super cool animation of the sorting algorithms that we have created so far. So we can now use the name of any sorting algorithm, just copy paste it in here, and then we'll have this beautiful animation which we can pause, which we can reshuffle, which we can increase the speed of, which we can decrease the speed of to make it super slow. And then, we can just pause it again, we can exit out of it, and yeah, this is it. I hope you made it through this very long section of 3 videos on just Pygame. I hope to see you in the next video where we will go on with the next sorting algorithm. See you then. Bye.